They trained you wrong. From the moment you could speak, you were taught that winning an argument means talking more, defending harder, explaining louder, proving yourself until the other person gives up. But here's what they never told you. The moment you open your mouth to defend yourself, you already lost. Not because your words were wrong, but because you reacted. And reaction is surrender. The most powerful weapon in any conflict is not your intelligence, your logic, or your voice. It's your silence. And in the next 6 minutes, I'm going to show you why silence isn't weakness. It's a psychological force so threatening that most people have never learned to use it. Because the man who doesn't need to explain himself is the man no one dares to challenge twice. Here's the truth most people miss. When you get into a conflict, a confrontation, a challenge, an accusation, your brain does something automatic. It activates your threat response. Your heart rate spikes. Cortisol floods your system. And suddenly, you feel this overwhelming urge to explain yourself. To talk, to defend, to justify. Psychologists call this the justification reflex, and it's the most exploitable vulnerability in human behavior. Because when you start explaining, you hand power to the person across from you. Every word you say becomes ammunition. Every explanation becomes evidence of insecurity. You think you're winning, but you're actually unraveling. Watch the people around you. The ones who talk the most in conflicts, they're the most rattled, the most desperate, the most afraid. You weren't ignored because you were wrong. You were dismissed because you were predictable. The moment someone knows they can trigger a reaction from you, they own you. Silence removes that power entirely. Here's the psychology no one explains. Human beings are wired to fill silence. It's called the discomfort of the void. When two people are in conflict and one goes silent, not cold, not aggressive, just still, the other person's nervous system panics. They expect a reaction. They built their argument around triggering one. When it doesn't come, the psychological pressure reverses entirely. Suddenly, they're talking more, over-explaining, repeating themselves, getting louder. Not because they're winning, because they're drowning in uncertainty. This is what behavioral scientists call the over-justification effect. The more someone explains when faced with silence, the more they expose what they're afraid of. Watch for it. The next time someone attacks you and you say nothing, they will fill that silence with every insecurity they have. Silence isn't the absence of power. It's power without warning. The person who controls their reaction controls the conversation. The person who controls the conversation controls the outcome. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most men don't use silence because they're afraid it will be mistaken for weakness. They think silence means they couldn't come up with a comeback. They confuse stillness with defeat. That's exactly what people who want to control you need you to believe. Because if you're always reacting, always defending, always explaining, you're always on the defensive. And a man on the defensive is never in control. Think about the most powerful men you've ever encountered. The ones who made you feel slightly nervous, slightly uncertain. Were they the ones talking loudly, defending endlessly, proving themselves at every moment? No. They were calm, measured. They looked at you like they already knew how it ended, and they said very little. You were never too quiet. You were just trained to mistake noise for strength. The dark reality is this. People who need to prove themselves are still running from the version of themselves that felt powerless. Masters of silence have already let that version die. Once you understand this, everything changes. You start to see every conflict differently. Instead of asking, "What should I say?" you ask, "What happens if I say nothing?" And the answer is almost always, something shifts, someone breaks, someone overplays their hand. The tactical pause, a deliberate, controlled silence before responding, is one of the most studied techniques in negotiation psychology. FBI hostage negotiators use it. Elite lawyers use it. The world's highest stakes communicators use it. Because silence creates cognitive pressure, it forces the other person to wonder, to recalculate, to question whether they misjudged you. And in that moment of uncertainty, you gain the advantage without saying a single word. There's a reason the most dangerous men in any room are the quietest. They've learned what most people never will. You don't need to defend your value, you demonstrate it, silently. The moment you stop explaining yourself, something interesting happens. People start questioning themselves instead. Here's how to begin using silence as a weapon, starting now. First, the 3-second rule. Anytime someone says something meant to provoke you, wait 3 full seconds before responding. Not 2, not 1, 3. That pause alone communicates control. Second, stop justifying unsolicited. You were not put on this earth to explain your decisions to people who don't matter. The next time someone challenges a choice you made, look at them, say nothing, and let them sit in the discomfort of your indifference. Third, observe the silence others can't hold. Watch how quickly people around you fill quiet space. Watch what they reveal when no one pushes them to speak. You'll learn more about someone in 30 seconds of silence than in 30 minutes of conversation. Fourth, when someone attacks you, don't lower yourself to respond immediately. The pause is your response. It says, I've heard you. I'm not threatened. I'm deciding if you're worth my energy. That is power. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. And the more they reveal, the less they can hide. Most people will spend their entire lives trying to win arguments with words. They'll exhaust themselves explaining, defending, convincing, and wonder why no one ever takes them seriously. You now know something different. The man who mastered silence never had to prove he was powerful. His silence was the proof. Stay silent. Stay dangerous.